sell with a stick in the swill-bucket rattles bank. What is a commercial break for? The selling of products, obviously. Duh. But is there a purpose they can serve beyond that? On a multinational network, in a connected world? Might they be used to bridge gaps between cultures and bring people together? People who hitherto never thought they had anything in common? Who didn't understand or trust one another until the great invisible hand of capital pulled them into its warm and comforting embrace? Probably not, no. But sometimes something vaguely akin to that can occasionally come about as a minor side effect. Let's go back to the mid to late 80s. As today's modern multi-channel landscape mutates into the post-channel on-demand future, if there is one, let us turn back to the pioneer days, the frontier age, the Wild West. That's not just a metaphor. Well, it is, but I'm about to extend it. Just as the old world stood on the east coast and looked out at an entire massive and empty continental landscape ready to be colonised by whoever got there first, so the new technologies of satellites and coaxial cables opened up a vast vista of broadcasting space just waiting to be claimed and defined, unfortunately without the need to commit genocide in this case. Super Channel was ITV's big wagon train to the future. That future being pan-European television, programming watched all across the continent. One such channel already existed in the satellite-beamed Sky Channel. You may remember I did an episode on them once. Super was the second Europe-wide station, also beamed from space, but experienced by most via cable. When I say it was ITV's wagon train, I mean it was a joint venture of most of the ITV franchisees at the time. The only ones to keep out of it altogether were Thames and TBAM. All the others joined up with the Virgin Group, who owned the unloved cable station Music Box and essentially melted it down to an ingot out of which to forge Super Channel. Let's let the channel describe itself.
Out of this world, a television revolution is in the making. Never before in the history of European broadcasting has so much quality entertainment exploded onto your screen. From daybreak in the morning, with news, weather, financial analysis of the money markets, Europe's premier station brings you music, sport, programs about our environment, features, fashion, films, specials. And with news on the hour, Super Channel is counting down to the single European market in 1992. Can you afford to miss out on this golden opportunity? Super Channel, Europe's #1.
So not all that different from Sky Channel, really. But that was from several years later, when the channel was right on the skids. I want to go back to its launch night. Super arrived on the 30th of January 1987 in a blaze of something. It did have a very cool ident, unsurprisingly, as it was designed by Lambie Nen. Unfortunately, it was the TSWS opening brass band and lame neon mirror ball that gave a more accurate picture.
This is Super Channel.
The intention was for Super Channel to plant a big Union flag in the middle of Europe's broadcasting landscape. It was supposed to be a showcase for the cream of British television, for a continent to be dazzled by and hopefully become insanely envious of. Most of its programming was sourced from the archives not only of the respective ITV companies, but of a cheerfully game BBC. It was one of the first places for reasonably comprehensive Doctor Who repeats. Basically, think UK Gold, but with extra nationalistic penis waggling. They grabbed the odd show from European syndication as well, of course. All this and ITN News too. And of course it opened with a great big welcoming launch show just like any ITV franchise. With occasional interruptions for advertising, of course. Like this.
It's taken the designer's art, the engineer's vision, to create the new British luxury saloon.
Well, this tracks with the idea of Super Channel as a massive advert in itself for Britain. Rover cars. With the increasingly toxic British Leyland name finally rotted away, they're desperately trying to reinvent and reposition themselves as the flagship, no pun intended, of the British automobile industry, such as it is. Which is why this advert is almost straining a muscle to be elegant and upmarket.
To combine aerodynamics with beauty and stature. To balance smoothness of ride with full-blooded power. And to design a car that soothes and comforts, leaving the pressures of the day far behind.
The cinematic lighting, the smooth-chinned, power-dressed executive who represented peak masculinity in 1986, which is when these adverts were made, remember, it is only January. The sculpted chrome effect logo and pointedly low-key serif lettering. The abundance of clean, straight lines. This isn't your dad's Austin ambassador. And let's not forget the silky voice of Roy Marsden, drenched in echo to sound even more like God, and bespoke Clannad soundtrack, just different enough to the theme from Harry's Game to both not get sued and not remind the viewer too much of IRA and or RUC atrocities.
Prestige, power, performance. The new Rover 800 series. Engineering in a finer form.
I don't know how well it worked for Rover. I seem to remember them spending most of the 90s lurching between crises, but they did successfully emerge from the ashes of Leyland. I wouldn't mind seeing the old mark revived, in fact. Just in the interests of full disclosure, though, I have cheated a bit here, and have up to this point been using a differently sourced video of the same advert, because apparently Super Channel were just so excited to finally be on the air that they added a little marquee on original broadcast to mark the fact that this was their first commercial break. Cute. It's not like they knew how it was going to turn out. Next, more sophistication and more promotion of British brand names. Although it's not actually a British advert, the company, while based in the UK by then, originated in Geneva, and the sophistication is borrowed from a dead American. But still, shut up. Back when we were obsessed with the 80s, this aesthetic was all over the place for a bit. Amidst vaporwave neon grids, bright pink pseudo-handwritten logos and guitar-driven soundtracks, it's one of the most distinctive visual styles any era of popular culture has ever had, although, as Moonbeam City proved, it's not actually a substitute for having jokes or charm. And here it is in situ, as it were, being deployed in its actual era as contemporary chic rather than semi-ironic nostalgia. You can tell by the soundtrack being led by the double bass instead of a guitar. They're not taking the piss. This is genuine cool mid-80s style. And of course it all comes from Mr. Patrick Nagel, master of the faintly Far Eastern high-contrast clear-lined portrait of new wave beauty, who sadly died of an exploded heart in 1984 just as his works were starting to define the era. Which obviously means that he didn't have anything to do with this Schweppes campaign from 2 years later, despite prints of it being sold on eBay as works directly from his hand. They're not, he ain't know anything about them, he was dead. The actual artist, who's doing a commendable impression of him, is apparently Jos van Utrecht, which leads me to the second fact about this advert: it's Dutch. Translated into English for what it's worth, but a Dutch advert from what was quite a popular campaign over there. Pan-European channel, pan-European advertising. To an extent, it's banking on its viewers, certainly in the UK, not to notice or care, as long as they recognise the product. But they wouldn't have seen this on ITV or Channel 4.
Schweppes has.
They probably see this instead.
There's a kind all over the world tonight.
I think I'd rather be Dutch. And that really sets the pattern for Super Channel's advertising. With a continent-wide audience, while promoting British brands is a no-brainer, and again Mr. Schwepp formed his company here, so it counts, there's no point advertising things that are only available in Britain. It can, however, be worthwhile to advertise the odd thing that isn't, unless you look very hard. Like these energy drinks. Stop thinking Red Bull and Monster. This is when energy drinks meant sporty lemon squash, and occasionally orange syrup. Britain has Lucozade, America has Pepsi and Coca-Cola dueling it out with Gatorade and Powerade respectively, and on the continent, straight out of Switzerland, Isostar.
What the body loses through perspiration is restored by Isostar.
Sorry, Isostar. That's how Patrick Allen pronounces it, and he had the voice of the Old Testament God, so I wouldn't argue. He could tear your very shadow from your being. Oh wait, so that's what Isostar does.
The fast-acting isotonic thirst quencher.
Yes, this energy drink is so good it forces your shadow to keep running even after you yourself are knackerized. The laws of physics mean nothing to Isostar.
When your performance declines, Isostar gives you back what your body requires.
And that's the much heralded first commercial break on Super Channel. So special they had to make a note of it even though there were only 3 adverts. Little hard to sell advertising space on a brand new cable channel in 1987, even if it was broadcasting to the entire continent. In fact, if anything, that made it harder. The idea was that the advertising slots would rise in value and therefore price as Super Channel went on, growing in reputation and adding viewers all the time. Did I say idea? I meant desperate gamble. Anyway, let's move forward 10 minutes or so to look at the second ever commercial break on Super Channel, which sadly isn't commemorated with a marquee. This one only has 2, and here's the first.
Working, jogging, or training hard. If you want to keep on going, get yourself a Mars. Flying, winning, all things don't go your way. A Mars a day. What you want, Mr. Play?
It's Mars. It's a fairly straightforward one that's barely worth talking about, really. The whole work, rest and play thing, which, lest we forget, is, or was, an attempt at selling the Mars bar as something healthsome of all things. All that glucose and, calcium, maybe, gave you energy to face the day. It would be more or less illegal to sell a candy bar on that basis in this day and age, and even here in 1987 the main emphasis is on it being a tasty, gooey snack, rather than something beneficial to anything beyond the taste buds. Not that I've dropped the angle altogether, it's just that part is left to be largely implied, by the unaccountably intense session singer, who gets to drop words like goodness, and the montage of frantic physical activity he's singing over, starring people who've probably never eaten a Mars bar in their life.
Flirting, laughing, that's what we say. The goodness in Mars helps you laugh through the day. Surfing, hurting, then together again. A Mars a day. Helps you work, rest and play. Whatever you do, a Mars a day. Helps you work, rest and play.
Exercise, surfing, Shakespearean makeouts, some twat giving his car a kick and breaking his toe. Mars bars.
A Mars a day. Helps you work, rest and play.
The 1986 lipstick census.
First I'm hearing about it. I certainly never received my paper.
Revlon has 41 shiny shades of pink lipstick, 24 luscious browns, 18 famous Revlon reds.
Pretty sure those were all red, actually, but then this isn't my wheelhouse. I'm sure every one of those 83 different shades are highly distinctive and very lovely.
Revlon lipstick color as personal as this morning's mood.
I don't know about that. Didn't hear anything about fuck everything black. Oh wait, there's more.
25 colours of wine, 29 corals, 17 shades of purple.
So that's 154 in total. And again, they all look red to me. Different shades of red, absolutely, but are all the subcategories really necessary? Or are they just a way of splitting the market into as many pieces as possible in order to maximise profit? Like I said, this ain't my wheelhouse.
Or wear and wear without drying your lips. Revlon lipstick, the difference between looking good and looking great.
I didn't know it was that simple. Thanks, Revlon. Well, no, not so much. So that's how Super Channel began, as effectively ITV Europe. Would it surprise you to learn it failed almost immediately? No? Turns out them Eurotypes don't actually like British television. It's full of British people, you see, and we do tend to forget everyone else in the world hates us, despite the Eurovision Song Contest coming along every year to remind us. Plus there was all those usual arguments with equity over repeat fees and the like, and the whole enterprise quickly became a massive money pit. Most of the ITV companies ran away screaming inside a year. The ones that hadn't by early 1988, specifically Granada, Anglia, Yorkshire and TVS, sold their controlling stake to the Marcucci's, the Italian family behind this remarkably brazen MTV rip-off. Under those guys, it quickly transitioned from a British outpost to a cosmopolitan pan-European showcase to match its transmission area. But ultimately the Marcucci's couldn't really make a go of it either, and eventually they, and Virgin, who stuck it out with them, sold it wholesale to NBC. They retooled it top to bottom as NBC Europe, to no greater avail. It managed to change hands another couple of times before it finally died of absolute indifference in the mid-aughties, by which time it was redundant to a remarkable extent. It's still remembered, but largely as a novelty, not even interesting enough to be a cautionary tale, unlike, say, the not dissimilar saga of Granada Sky Broadcasting, just short of a decade later. I'm going to be kind and say it was a worthy attempt, if only because of the Lambinan aesthetic and Doctor Who repeats, but they clearly had no idea whatsoever what they were getting into. The one unique thing about them, and this is advertising related, so bear with me, is this. Super Channel was broadcast via the ECS-1 satellite, which occasionally went into Eclipse and necessitated a temporary close down. I say occasionally, it happened often enough that there was a set routine, and uniquely, even a sponsor. 2 years before the real ITV started doing it with the weather, Philips paid for an advert to run right before and after these Eclipse close downs.
At Philips, we can't prevent an eclipse, but having invented the video cassette recorder, we can suggest an alternative source of viewing. Philips, take a closer look.
Piss All, brought to you by Philips.
Now that Super Channel has returned to the air, you can switch back from your Philips video cassette machine to your Philips television. Innovation in sound and vision. Philips, take a closer look.
Worthy of RoboCop. And it kind of sums up Super Channel itself. In the end, the universe itself just didn't care.
I'm super
thanks for asking. All things considered, I couldn't be better, I must say. I'm feeling super, no, nothing bugs me. Everything is super when you're, don't you think I look cute in this hat? I'm so sorry, Mr. Cripple, but I just can't feel too bad for you right now, because I'm feeling so insanely super that even the fact that you can't walk can bring me down.
He's super, thanks for asking. All things considered, he could be better, he must say.
I'm super, no, nothing bugs me. Everything is super when you're, don't you think I...
You just sat through a Bob the Fish production. Nice! If you haven't already, you absolutely must check out bobthefish.org.uk. Literally hundreds more videos not unlike that one, adding up to days worth of entertainment and all absolutely free. But if you're not a cold-hearted skinflint, you can always support us on Patreon. For as little as anything at all, you can make programmes like the one you just watched possible in the first place, and become eligible for bonus material such as glimpses of the book I'm writing about the BBC, monthly riffings on random commercial breaks, the complete archives of the angry political satire magazine Two Sons, and even the odd very occasional bonus video essay unavailable anywhere else. If nothing else, you should prevent me from starving and or freezing to death in the foreseeable future, so that'll be nice. No pressure or anything. bobthefish.org.uk. You make it what it is.